Greetings, Embers. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. I hope everyone has had a wonderful and happy holiday. Are you a fan of gore, shock value, and chills? I have just the compilation for you. Sit back, relax, and let's get started, shall we? Every story in this compilation was written by Chronic Nightmares. Trigger warning. Some of these stories include material that is graphic in nature. If you are on the sensitive side, this video is not for you. The stories narrated within this video are for entertainment purposes only. Listening discretion is advised. This story is entitled, Life's a Rhyme. Life is a wonderful thing. It makes me want to laugh and sing. It is so beautiful and full of charm, especially when I am causing harm. As I peel their skin, it reveals new layers to life. And all it takes is a few cuts from my favorite knife. You see, life is a rhyme, and it flows with the passage of time. It guides me to my victims like a siren of fate, with a heart that is filled with hate. I was born this way, I wasn't made. I bet my mother regrets getting laid. She birthed a monster in the hospital that night, as I screamed upon first seeing the light. In her eyes I could do no wrong, and as the years passed, she continued to play along to my manipulative song. I didn't kill Mr. Kitty, I promise, Mommy. It's okay, I believe you, honey. She was completely clueless right up to the end, convinced that everything was all pretend. Even as the blade bit at her throat, she shrugged and continued to put on her coat. I sliced her ear to ear, then chin to cheek, before the smell of my mother's fecal matter produced quite the reek. She brought me into this world and gave me life, and I departed her from it with my knife. The beautiful, poetic irony of nature at its finest, though it's not always the kindest. The signs are everywhere, it's plain to see. All you have to do is set your mind free. When you see the rhymes, things become much clearer. The signs are everywhere, they couldn't be nearer. It's the urge in the back of your brain, telling you to push that elderly man in front of that incoming train. It's every dark thought you ever had. Trust me when I say, act upon them and you will be glad. There is no place for remorse or pity. I never showed none when I drowned Mr. Kitty. Life is the best rhyme, for it repeats all the time. The rhythm echoes through the ages, and beneath the surface nothing changes. A never-ending cycle of twisted desires, as the urges burn through your veins like scorching fires. History doesn't repeat, it rhymes. The same is true within our minds. For we are all truly the same inside our brain, all a part of the great rhyme that will continue on until the end of time. Life is the greatest rhyme. This story is entitled, A Boy Called Cunt. On the 5th floor of Brentwood Council Estate, a door number 206, lived a single mother named Natasha and her son, a terribly deformed boy who nobody on the estate had ever seen. She had never named him officially, but she referred to him as Cunt. Cunt was locked away 24/7. hidden from the world in a room no bigger than a prison cell. The only window was barred up and blacked out with paint. His mother had also seen to it that the walls were completely soundproofed. The soundproofing became necessary after neighbors began complaining about the noise. Despite Natasha never learning him how to talk, Cunt sure did like to scream in gibberish, with the occasional word of English thrown in, often parroting things he would hear his mother say. Natasha didn't hate her son. She liked that she could take all of her anger out on him. After coming home from a long night of working the streets, it was nice to know that she could release all that built-up rage on her own personal punching bag. But more recently, Natasha had turned Cunt into more of a pincushion. She had learned how to sew wounds online, and this meant that she could cut away at his hideous body like she was Picasso, and enjoy his screams happily knowing that nobody could hear them. Cunt never got used to the pain. In fact, he didn't truly know what pain was, but he knew that he didn't like how it felt. It was hard for his damaged brain to make sense of anything, when all of his life he had only known the four walls surrounding him, and his mother, who he loved dearly. To him it was life, although he did get lonely, and being in the dark scared him, so much so that he looked forward to seeing his mother as she entered his room with her tickle stick, all ready to make him leak red again. "Come to mommy," Natasha said as she produced a fake smile. Cunt obeyed, but when he tried to hug her, she slapped him hard in the face, causing him to fall to the floor. "Don't fucking touch me!" Cunt got up from the floor, but was swiftly kicked back down. His mother then held the blade in her hand up to his throat. "I could kill you right now if I wanted to," Natasha said before pulling the knife away. "Now, get up, cunt." Cunt did as he was told and tried to stop the tears forming in his eyes. Seeing him cry only angered her more. His mother then gestured for him to turn around, and again he obeyed. Natasha dragged the blade across his tumor-covered back, leaving a thin trail of blood and pus behind it. Cunt shivered and winced with pain before his mother leaned closely to his ear and whispered, "One day I'll kill you, but not today." This story is entitled, "She Sells Seashells by the Seashore." Not much is known about the woman who sells seashells by the seashore, only that she appears just before sunset, right through to morning, standing behind a table full of wares. People that have seen her claim to have seen different things laid out, things that were not always nice, but the thing that always remained consistent with each account was the vast array of glimmering seashells dangling from strings, seemingly being held up by the air itself. To everyone outside of our small village, she is a myth, a tale told to children, but to us, she is a horrible reality. As I said before, we don't know much about her, but we do know that she has been here far longer than we have. Every morning at 6 o'clock, everyone in the village has to go to the seashore and place a single seashell that has been generously coated in their own blood. You can't trick her with animal blood either. She will know. Many have tried to take her for a fool, and many have found themselves being chopped up and sold as her wares. Some say the blood is what gives the shells their beautiful shimmer. Others say that we are contributing to summoning something, that all these centuries of our ancestors and our own blood offerings were to bring forth something unknown, and maybe even apocalyptic. All I know is she scares me. Enough so that I will happily drain every last drop of my entire essence for her, if it means I won't end up being sold in parts on her table, as those shells clink together above my mangled remains. I have never bought anything from her before, but a few people have purchased some shells from her. She doesn't accept cash, only blood, which is drained into scales to make a purchase. The body parts never sell though, only the seashells. They probably just end up washing up on a beach somewhere, probably found by some child happily playing in the shallow. Those who purchase shells all claim to be plagued with strange dreams. When they tried to throw away the shells, they found them later that night, laying on their pillows. The dreams drove some so mad that they drowned themselves in the sea, while the others took the dreams as a message from God, telling them to kill their entire families. The ground has begun shaking more ferociously recently, and there is definitely something stirring down there. I'm beginning to think they may have been right all along. Maybe we have been unknowingly summoning something. But if we stop our sacrifices, we all die. And as selfish as it sounds, I have no intention of dying. As miserable as this trapped existence is, at the end of the day, it's still existence, and I plan to hold on to it as long as I have blood left to give. And tomorrow, I might just purchase a seashell. This story is entitled Project Brainchild. The potential of the human brain is extraordinary, yet during my research I found that intelligence does have a limit. But I found a way to break that mental barrier, a way to increase human intelligence far beyond that of any artificial intelligence. You see, the brain doesn't have enough electrons to fully reach the potential that I know it is capable of. It just needed more power. One brain simply doesn't have enough electrons to grant advanced intelligence. But I had an answer. A single brain is not enough, but multiple brains all surgically connected together should, in theory, grant enough energy to advance intellectual potential considerably. Now, I just needed a few days to get everything ready and find some willing participants, preferably with still developing brains that meet the IQ requirements. Only the smartest were to be picked. It didn't take long. I found 3 perfect specimens: Thomas, Ben, and Rebecca, all in the same school. Between them, they had a combined IQ of 419. It was very easy to get them all into my van. Turns out, having an Xbox set up in the back with Fortnite ready to play is like a magnet for children. Even ones as intelligent as these 3. They didn't start screaming until I slammed the door shut. They kicked and screamed all the way to the abandoned warehouse, which I was using as a makeshift lab. I used a hose pipe to pump gas into the back of the van before restraining them. It made it much easier to get them all inside and strap them down. Then I just had to wait for them to wake up before performing the surgery. I needed them fully conscious for the delicate procedure. Ben woke up first and began to scream, following shortly after by Rebecca and then Thomas. All of their screams were annoyingly loud, but it didn't matter. Nobody was going to hear them. I then grabbed the scalpel and began cutting. The feel of the scalpel in my hand as it cut into their scalps was heavenly. I just wished they would have kept still and stopped struggling so I could have enjoyed the moment in blissful silence. With their skulls exposed, it was time to crack some coconuts. Rebecca and Ben passed out as I cracked open their skulls, and Thomas had now gone quiet and was shivering, but still conscious. I brought the other 2 back around with some adrenaline before continuing. I then painstakingly attached the brains together. The children twitched uncontrollably against the restraints as their eyes darted frantically. After 10 hours of surgery, I was finished. It's now been 5 months, and my theory has been proven correct. With the brains all connected, like conjoined twins, their intelligence has increased exponentially. Now, all they do is smile. Their expressions all the exact same, locked in an internal grin of satisfaction. Now I'm curious why they are so happy. I want to be happy too. This story is entitled, I Miss You. My sister, Isabella, and I had no friends. We only had each other. We were viewed as outcasts. Other kids at school called us the Tramp Twins. The name was clearly targeted at our appearance. We were always covered in dirt, and our personal hygiene was practically zero. All things beyond our control. We didn't live in a happy home, didn't even have running water, and the clothes on our backs were all we had. Greeting us when we got home was our parents, both passed out on the living room floor, and the spot where our TV used to be, before they sold it for heroin. The house was nothing but empty rooms. A single filthy mattress on the floor of our bedroom was where we slept, head to tail, every night. It was during the night that we had conversations, our voices shivering from the cold. Do you think Mom or Dad would miss us if we died? Isabella asked, her voice almost breaking. Of course they would, I lied. The honest answer would have been, no, I don't think they would have missed us at all. Isabella then began crying. She did that a lot. I would often hear her crying herself to sleep. Our parents had broken us completely. But poor Isabella, she was broken most of all. One day, I found her seated on the mattress stabbing herself repeatedly in the arm with a used syringe. She said the pain made the bad thoughts go away. I hugged her tightly and told her everything was going to be all right as she sobbed into my shoulder. I love you, sis, Isabella said, wiping tears from her eyes. Those were the last words my sister ever said to me. The next morning, I found her dead in the bathroom. She had hung herself using Dad's belt. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just stood in shock as my entire world caved in on itself. I rushed into the living room and tried to wake my parents, but they didn't care. In anger, I picked up a syringe from the floor and stabbed my mother in the neck until she died. My father remained passed out. His eyes didn't open until I jammed a handful of needles into his face. Once they were both dead, I sat on the floor in a puddle of blood. Everything had happened so fast that it was all a blur. I regretted nothing. They were the reason that Isabella left me alone in such a miserable world. Why should I be alone when I could be with Isabella again? That is what I ponder this very instant, as I rest the edge of the knife with my thumb. Life is always so cruel to the kind, yet so generous to the wicked. It is a life I want no part of. Not without my best friend. But I have hope maybe once I cut my wrists, I can be with Isabella again. This story is entitled, The Sea Be a Cruel Mistress. Date, November 14th, 1877. Captain's Log Number 1. It appears we are caught in a terrible storm. The deck beneath my feet is swaying so much that I am struggling to maintain my balance. Huge waves are battering the hull as the wood creaks and moans. I have never seen waves like this before, and have never heard thunder as loud. The rain is so heavy that to step foot outside my quarters would be like having buckets of water thrown over my head. I fear it is going to be a very long night. Captain's Log Number 2. I'm hearing reports that some of my men are claiming to have seen something in the water trailing the galleon, but I suspect it is probably just a whale. Though I must admit that this storm has me feeling quite uneasy. In all my years as a seaman, I have never seen weather like this. Captain's log number 3. The storm seems to not only have brought with it misery and danger, but madness as well. I heard shouting outside my cabin, and when I braved the vicious elements to go outside and see what was going on, I was shocked by what I was witnessing. It wasn't shouting I had heard, but chanting in an unknown language on their knees, barely keeping balance from the constant swaying, and the rest were standing there, watching the scene with eyes as wide as my own. I tried to intervene, but they ignored my orders, and the chanting only grew louder as I shouted. They then began to wave their hands in the air, moving as one in complete unison. Then suddenly, seemingly coming from the heavy black clouds above, echoed a frightful screech. I retreated back to my cabin instantly and locked the door. Whatever that noise was, it sure didn't sound natural. Captain's log number 4. I felt something big brushing against the bottom of the ship. It tilted the ship so violently that I was flung against the cabin wall. I heard the screams of men on deck as they were flung into the drink. Luckily for me, my cabin protected me from going overboard, but I do appear to have received a broken leg in the process, along with some minor bruising. Captain's log number 5. It's been 2 hours since the screaming stopped. I know everyone is dead. Their blood is flowing beneath the door, pooling up into a thick, red puddle. Desperate men that had begged me to let them in. Men who I deeply regret not helping. Whatever is outside knows I am in here. It whispers my name, beckoning me to come outside. And the more foggier my mind becomes, the more enticing the offer becomes. This story is entitled, Run. Paul Reed listened to the news on the TV as he got ready. The main story was something about a strange string of heart attacks in the area. He barely paid any attention to it. He grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, then grabbed his house keys before heading outside for his daily run. He decided on a beautiful scenic jog through the woods just out of town, with the hope of bumping into Beverly, another avid jogger like himself who enjoyed the route. Every time they had met, Paul had stumbled awkwardly with his words. He knew she liked him, but he never had the courage to tell her that he felt the same. But he had made a promise to himself that when he next saw her, he would ask her out. Paul had been jogging for an hour before he stopped and sat down on a fallen tree, then guzzled some water, which was delightfully cold. He took in his surroundings, beautiful berry bushes and tall great oak trees. Then he saw Beverly running towards him, sprinting like she was in a race. He could see that she was absolutely drenched in sweat, and as she got closer, he noticed the fear on her face. "Run!" Beverly screamed as she bolted right past him. Before Paul could even register the situation, a loud, otherworldly screeching sound echoed all around. Then, with absolute horror, he saw the tall, naked man running towards him, striding along on 2 long legs and ducking beneath the treetops as it approached, which was now at a frightening speed. Paul ran as fast as he could. He looked behind and observed as it began to pick up even more speed. He ran even faster. He ran so fast that he could have given Usain Bolt a run for his money. He looked behind again. The tall man was still in pursuit, only being slowed by the trees it had to duck beneath. Paul knew if he stopped for a single moment, that thing would catch him, and he didn't want to know what it would do to him if it did. Paul kept running until he felt close to fainting. He looked back and saw his pursuer hot on his trail. Then he saw Beverly ahead of him, collapsed on the ground. He couldn't stop to see if she was okay. Stopping would mean death, he was sure of that. He passed by Beverly and continued to run as fast as he could. He ran for 2 hours, occasionally checking behind to see that monstrous thing still there. Paul was beginning to feel the fatigue now. His head felt light, and he was getting a terrible crushing sensation in his chest. He looked behind to see that the tall man was closer now. He could see the wide, red grin on its face. Gotta keep running. I can't slow down, Paul thought, as the crushing in his chest intensified. This last and final story is entitled The Painting. I found the painting in the window of a charity shop. It caught my eye straight away. Something about it drew me in, like a moth to a flame. The painting depicted a beautiful, smiling woman with black hair that the moon glistened off spectacularly. She was dressed in a crimson-colored Victorian-style dress and was standing by a lake underneath a huge full moon that almost covered the night sky. Her pale complexion complemented her bright emerald eyes wonderfully. The detail was outstanding, almost photorealistic. Now, I'm not normally one for art, but there was something special about the painting that I had to buy it. I went into the charity shop, then walked back out with my wallet being 50 pounds lighter and the painting tucked under my arm. When I got home, I hung the painting on the wall in my living room, and that's when I first noticed something strange. When I looked at the painting, I noticed something odd that I never noticed in the charity shop window. The full moon above the woman now had a face with a wide grinning mouth. It was looking directly at me with an unnerving stare that pierced through me like a sharp blade cutting into flesh. Was that there before? I was certain it wasn't. I decided to try and forget about it and went on with my day. But later that night, I dreamt I was inside the painting as the moon watched from above, still smiling in that unsettling way as its eyes followed me. I felt trapped under its gaze. Then I saw her. The emerald-eyed woman. She spoke strangely with a soft yet kind-sounding voice as she stared unblinkingly into my eyes. The moon has chosen you. Then I woke up with the sun beaming through my window. My entire body was drenched in sweat. I got up and took a shower before heading downstairs. All the while, the dream was playing heavily on my mind. First thing I did when I was downstairs was go straight into the living room to look at the painting. And that's when my eyes widened with shock. The painting had now changed drastically. The woman was now much closer than before, looking straight at me with a smile. I blinked, thinking it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But upon blinking, the painting changed again. Now she was moving, waving at me. I was both mesmerized and terrified at the same time. I recoiled back when the moon winked. I tore the painting down from the wall and took it outside to burn it. Everything was fine for a couple of days. But now, things are a lot worse. The moon is following me wherever I go. Any painting I see or billboard I pass, the moon is always there, watching me with that horrible grin. I know the moon has chosen me, but for what? Do I even want to know? And that concludes this series of stories written by the mastermind, Chronic Nightmares. Thank you to each of you that took the time to listen to this story. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and joining the Phoenix Fire Narrations channel. As I always like to say, when life gives you fire, become a phoenix. I hope you are all happy, safe, and healthy. Until then, take care of one another. I'll read to you soon.